Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Jennifer Clark stood by the small kitchen window of her apartment, cradling a warm cup of coffee as the morning sunlight streamed in. The tiny Boston apartment wasn't much, but it was home. A home she had built with quiet resilience and unwavering love for her son Tyler. She took a slow sip, letting the warmth settle inside her, but the knot in her stomach refused to loosen. Today was the day she had been dreading. "Mom, I can't tie my tie." Tyler's voice echoed from the living room. Jennifer turned to see her 8-year-old son standing in front of the mirror, his small fingers fumbling with the red tie draped around his neck. She set her cup down and knelt in front of him, smoothing the fabric between her fingers. "Yes, this is tricky," she said, her voice gentle. "But don't worry, Mom's got you." As she looped the tie into a neat knot, a sharp pang tightened in her chest. She knew what today meant. Caroline, her former sister-in-law, was getting married, and the last place Jennifer wanted to be was at that wedding, surrounded by people who had never truly accepted her. For over 10 years, she had worked tirelessly at Maple Diner, taking every shift she could to make ends meet. Long hours, meager tips, and unpredictable customers were all part of her daily grind. Yet she never complained. She had to be strong for Tyler. 3 years ago, her world had collapsed when she discovered Michael's affair. He hadn't even tried to hide it. His secretary, a woman nearly 10 years younger, had quickly become the new center of his life. "I want a divorce," he had said without hesitation. Jennifer hadn't cried that day. She had simply signed the papers, packed her bags, and moved back in with her parents, taking 5-year-old Tyler with her. There was no begging, no confrontation, just quiet acceptance. That was her pride, her refusal to break in front of him. Her pride, however, hadn't shielded her from the way Michael's family treated her. His mother, Beverly, had always made it clear that she saw Jennifer as nothing more than a mistake in her son's life, a waitress who had no business marrying into their world. Caroline, Michael's younger sister, had been no different. With a prestigious university degree and an air of superiority, she had never missed an opportunity to remind Jennifer of her place. Tyler had noticed it too. He was bright for his age, sensitive beyond his years. "Grandma Beverly and Aunt Caroline don't like you, do they?" he had asked once, his small face creased with concern. Jennifer had forced a smile, brushing his hair back. "Adult relationships are complicated, sweetheart," she had said, though she knew that wasn't really an answer. Now, as she adjusted the final fold of his tie, she forced her thoughts back to the present. "Tyler, today is a special day. It's your aunt's wedding, so we need to be extra polite." Her son studied her face, his sharp eyes filled with unspoken understanding. He knew she didn't want to go. He also knew why she had agreed. "I want to see Dad," he had said. Ad said softly when the invitation arrived. Jennifer had hesitated but eventually relented. It wasn't about her, it was about Tyler. She smoothed the fabric of her simple navy dress, her hands trembling slightly. She had chosen something understated, something that wouldn't draw attention. But no matter how much she tried to blend in, today was going to be different. She could feel it in her bones. Before stepping out of the apartment, she placed her hands on Tyler's small shoulders. Her voice steady despite the weight in her heart. "No matter what happens, we are family. Never forget that." Tyler nodded firmly, his trust in her absolute. They left the apartment together, unaware that the day ahead would change their lives forever. As the taxi pulled up to the entrance of the Grand Harborview Hotel, Jennifer felt her chest tighten. The massive chandeliers inside glowed through the tall glass windows, illuminating the perfectly polished marble floors. The sheer extravagance of it all made her feel even more out of place. She took a deep breath and looked at Tyler, who was sitting beside her, his small hands fidgeting in his lap. "You ready?" she asked, forcing a smile. Tyler nodded, but she could see the hesitation in his eyes. As they stepped inside, the air smelled of expensive perfume and fresh roses. The guests were already mingling, their laughter echoing through the vast reception hall. Waiters in crisp white uniforms carried trays of champagne, moving through the crowd with practiced elegance. Jennifer led Tyler toward the reception table, where a young woman in a black dress checked the guest list. "Mrs. Clark?" the woman asked, scanning the paper in front of her. She hesitated for a moment, her brows furrowing. Please wait just a second. Jennifer exchanged a glance with Tyler, her grip tightening on his hand. The receptionist whispered something to another staff member, who then glanced at Jennifer and nodded before disappearing into the crowd. Something was wrong. A moment later, the receptionist returned with a nervous smile. Right this way, please. Jennifer followed her through the grand hall, passing elegantly dressed guests who barely spared her a glance. Then she saw their table. For a moment, she couldn't process what she was looking at. Her breath caught in her throat as she read the name tags in front of their seats. Single mother and waitress. She blinked, her stomach twisting. Tyler's name tag sat beside it. Single mother's child. A chill ran down her spine. The humiliation was sharp, cutting through her like a blade. The words weren't a mistake. They weren't an oversight. They were intentional. Her first instinct was to take Tyler's hand and walk out. She didn't belong here, and they had made sure she knew it. But then she glanced down at her son. Tyler was staring at the name tags, his small hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight, his eyes shining with something between confusion and hurt. Jennifer swallowed the lump in her throat, forcing herself to stay calm. She flipped both name cards over, hiding the cruel words, and took a seat. It's okay, sweetheart, she said softly. Just a bad joke. Tyler didn't respond. He simply sat down beside her, his expression unreadable. The hall continued to fill, guests taking their seats, glasses clinking as the celebratory mood spread. And then Beverly arrived, dressed in a silver-gray gown with pearls glittering at her neck and ears. She moved through the crowd with the confidence of a queen. When her gaze landed on Jennifer, she tilted her head, an almost imperceptible smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "Oh, Jennifer, you came," she said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "And little Tyler too, how nice." Jennifer didn't respond. She simply smiled politely and nodded. Beverly barely acknowledged her grandson before turning away to greet more esteemed guests. Then the music started, and the ceremony began unfolding in a blur of vows, rings, and applause. Caroline entered, glowing in an extravagant wedding gown, her smile as dazzling as the diamonds on her neck. Jennifer kept her face neutral, though inside she felt like a stranger watching a world that had long since cast her out. The reception dinner soon followed. The tables were adorned with crystal glasses and gold-plated cutlery. Waiters moved gracefully between guests, refilling drinks and setting down elaborate dishes. Then the clinking of a spoon against a glass silenced the room. Beverly had stood up, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice rich with practiced elegance, "thank you all for joining us on this wonderful day as we celebrate the wedding of my beloved daughter Caroline." There was polite applause. Beverly smiled, soaking in the attention before continuing. "Weddings are a time of love, family, and inclusivity," she said, her eyes flickering toward Jennifer. "Which is why we are so pleased to have some very special guests tonight." Jennifer's spine stiffened. Beverly gestured toward her. "Our dear former family member Jennifer is here with us this evening," she said smoothly as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jennifer, as many of you know, has worked tirelessly as a waitress for over a decade. A few chuckles echoed in the room. Jennifer's fingers curled around her napkin. Beverly wasn't finished. "And in honor of that dedication," she continued, her voice laced with mock sweetness, "I have a little suggestion. Since Jennifer is such an experienced waitress, perhaps she wouldn't mind helping serve dinner tonight." Laughter erupted. Jennifer's entire body went numb. She could feel every set of eyes on her, waiting for her reaction. Her throat burned, but no words came. From the corner of her eye, she saw Michael sitting with his drink in hand, looking away uncomfortably, but he did nothing, said nothing. The room blurred. The laughter, the whispers, the humiliation pressing down on her like a weight she couldn't lift. She wanted to stand, to leave, to take Tyler and never look back. But then something shifted. Beside her, Tyler's chair scraped against the floor. She turned her head in time to see him standing up. The entire room fell into silence. Jennifer's heart pounded. Tyler, her 8-year-old son, stepped forward, his small frame facing a crowd of well-dressed adults. His voice was steady, unwavering. "I have a present for the bride," he said. The laughter stopped. Caroline's smile froze. Jennifer's breath caught in her throat as she realized Tyler wasn't done yet. And whatever he was about to say would change everything. Tyler pushed his chair back, the scraping sound cutting through the silence like a blade. Jennifer's breath hitched as she watched her son walk toward the stage. His small frame moved with an air of quiet determination, his face set in a way that made him look far older than his 8 years. The room, once filled with laughter at his mother's expense, fell into a hush. All eyes turned toward the boy as he climbed onto the stage, standing barely tall enough to reach the microphone. He took a deep breath. "Please stop making fun of my mom." His voice was small yet steady, clear enough to carry through the massive hall. The silence deepened. Jennifer's heart pounded in her chest. Tyler stood alone, facing an entire room of well-dressed adults, his hands clenched at his sides. "My mom works hard every single day," he continued. His voice didn't shake, though his fingers twitched slightly. "She wakes up at 5 in the morning to pack my lunch. She helps me with my homework even when she's so tired she can barely keep her eyes open. She stands on her feet all day at work, smiling at rude customers just to make sure I have everything I need." Jennifer felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "She never complains," Tyler said. "Even when people treat her badly, even when people laugh at her." His gaze swept the room, his bright blue eyes filled with something fierce and unbreakable. "But nobody has the right to treat her like this." Beverly cleared her throat, stepping forward with an uneasy chuckle. "Sweet boy," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Why don't we leave the grown-up talk for later? I'll buy you some ice cream, HM? Chocolate or maybe 2 scoops. Tyler's expression didn't change. He didn't move from the microphone. "I don't want ice cream," he said. Beverly's smile faltered. "I want people to stop treating my mom like she doesn't matter," he said, his voice sharp now. "Because she does." A murmur ran through the crowd. A few guests shifted in their seats, suddenly uncomfortable. Beverly opened her mouth again, likely to dismiss him, but Tyler wasn't finished. "I wasn't going to say anything today," he admitted, his small fingers tightening around the edges of the microphone. "But after what you just did, Grandma Beverly, I think everyone deserves to know the truth." Jennifer stiffened. The truth. A nervous ripple spread through the crowd. Caroline, seated at the head table, suddenly straightened. She glanced at Michael, then at Bev, then back to Tyler. "What are you talking about, sweetheart?" she asked, forcing a bright smile. "It's a wedding. Let's not ruin it with—" "I heard you," Tyler interrupted. His voice was steady, but his little shoulders were tense. The room went still. Caroline's smile froze. Michael sat rigid in his chair, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. Tyler swallowed hard, but his eyes didn't waver. "3 days ago I went to your house, Aunt Caroline," he said. "Mom forgot to mail a letter, so I was on my way to piano class and decided to drop it off. But when I got there I saw Dad's car outside." Michael's face paled. Jennifer's stomach twisted. "The door was open a little," Tyler continued, "and I heard you two talking inside." A shudder passed through Caroline, her hands gripping the edge of the tablecloth. "That's ridiculous," she said quickly. "You must have misheard, sweetheart. I have proof." Tyler pulled something from his pocket. Jennifer gasped. It was Michael's old phone, a birthday present he had given Tyler months ago. The blood drained from Caroline's face. Tyler calmly tapped the screen and held it up to the microphone. For a second there was only static. Then came the voices. "Mike, I want to see Jenny's stupid face at the wedding. I'll write single mother waitress and humiliate her in front of everyone. The plan is perfect. Beverly is on board." Jennifer's breath caught in her throat. The voice was Caroline's. There was a collective gasp from the audience. Someone knocked over a glass. Another voice came through the speaker. "Michael, be careful. What if people find out you're pregnant with my child? Our relationship will be exposed." The room erupted into chaos. A woman screamed. Someone dropped their fork with a loud clatter. The murmurs turned into frantic whispers. Jennifer couldn't move. She felt frozen, her hands gripping the table as the full weight of the revelation crashed down around her. Caroline and Michael. An affair, a pregnancy, a cruel plan to humiliate her. Michael shot up from his chair. "Turn that off." But Tyler didn't. The recording continued. "James doesn't know anything yet," Caroline's voice whispered, smug and delighted. If I tell him after we're married, it'll be too late. I've calculated the timing so he won't know it's our child. Jennifer turned sharply. James, the groom, sat frozen, his face white as a sheet. His hands trembled where they rested on the table. His father slowly rose to his feet, his face hard. Son, he said firmly, we are leaving. James looked at Caroline. Caroline looked like she might faint. No, James, please. But James was already pulling off his wedding band. He placed it on the table and walked away. The whispers in the room grew louder. Beverly looked from Michael to Caroline, her face drained of all arrogance. You fools, she hissed. Michael sat back down, running a shaking hand through his hair. He looked at Jennifer, then at Tyler, and for the first time in years he looked ashamed. Tyler put the phone back in his pocket. When he walked straight back to Jennifer and slipped his little hand into hers. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. But I couldn't let them hurt you. Jennifer swallowed the lump in her throat and wrapped her arms around her son. You did nothing wrong, she whispered back. Nothing at all. Around them the chaos continued. Caroline was sobbing, Michael was silent, and Beverly was muttering about the disgrace of it all. But Jennifer didn't care. She took Tyler's hand. Let's go home, she said quietly. Without another glance back, they walked out of the grand, glittering hall, leaving the wreckage of her former life behind them. The silence that followed was deafening. James stood frozen, his face pale as if the life had been drained from him. He blinked slowly, his hands clenched at his side. The guests whispered among themselves, their gazes bouncing between the groom and the woman he had just promised to spend his life with. Caroline sat in stunned silence, her lips parted as if searching for an explanation. James, she whispered, reaching for his hand, but James pulled back. Is it true? His voice was barely above a whisper, but in the dead silence of the hall, it felt as loud as a shout. Caroline shook her head, frantic. No, Tyler is just a child. He must have misunderstood. I heard you. Tyler's voice, clear and unwavering, cut through her denial like a knife. The weight of those words seemed to crush her. Caroline's shoulders slumped, and she buried her face in her hands. The groom's father stepped forward, his expression hard with quiet fury. We are leaving, he said firmly, his voice carrying across the room. James exhaled shakily, his eyes never leaving Caroline's crumpled form. Then, with deliberate movements, he reached for his wedding ring. Caroline lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. James, please, she choked. I love you. James let out a hollow laugh. Love? He shook his head. You're pregnant with my fiancé's brother's child, and you plan to lie to me about it? That's not love. Caroline lunged forward, grabbing at his hands. It was a mistake. I was scared. James stepped away, shaking his head. He turned, slipped the ring off his finger, and placed it gently on the table in front of her. Without another word, he walked away. The whispers turned into murmurs, gasps of disbelief, hushed conversations, and the shuffle of guests getting up from their seats. James's parents led the way out of the hall, their guests following. The grand wedding had unraveled in minutes, and the spectacle was over. Michael, still sitting, let out a shaky breath and slowly rose to his feet. His gaze flickered from Caroline to Jennifer, then finally to Tyler. He swallowed hard. There's no point denying it, he muttered, rubbing his face. It's true. Caroline gasped as if his admission physically hurt her. Michael, you said. I said what you wanted to hear, he snapped. But the truth is out now. Caroline broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Beverly, who had stood frozen through it all of a sudden she found her voice. Absolute fools, she hissed. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the disgusted stares of the guests who remained. You've disgraced this family. Do you have any idea what you've done? Michael shot her a bitter look. I learned from the best, Mother. Beverly reeled back as if struck. For years, this woman had looked down on Jennifer, treating her as though she were nothing. But now, she stood in the ruins of her own family, the weight of disgrace crushing her beneath the judgmental gazes of the same people she had sought to impress. And Jennifer, for the first time, felt no fear in speaking up. She lifted her chin, her voice steady and unwavering. You humiliated me today, Beverly, she said. You tried to turn me into a joke in front of all these people. But it turns out the only people who should be ashamed are you and your children." Beverly's mouth opened, but no words came. Jennifer turned to Michael. "And you?" She let out a soft, almost amused scoff. "You left me because I wasn't good enough for you, but look at you now. You destroyed everything yourself." Michael said nothing. He had no defense left. Jennifer took a deep breath, then turned to Tyler, gently taking his hand. "We don't belong here," she said softly. Tyler nodded. Together they turned and walked toward the exit, Jennifer keeping her head high. The last thing she heard as the door shut behind them was the sound of Caroline's sobs and Beverly's frantic attempts to salvage what little dignity she had left. But Jennifer didn't look back. For the first time in a long time, she was walking toward something better. Jennifer and Tyler stepped out of the hotel and into the cool evening air, leaving behind the chaos, the betrayal, and the humiliation. As they walked toward the waiting taxi, Jennifer squeezed Tyler's small hand in hers. "You okay?" she asked softly. Tyler nodded, though his face was thoughtful. "Yeah. Are you?" Jennifer let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. For the first time in years, she felt something close to freedom. "I think I am." They got into the taxi, and as the car pulled away from the Grand Hotel, Jennifer didn't spare a single glance back. That world, Michael, Caroline, Beverly, none of it mattered anymore. The weeks that followed were nothing short of transformative. One afternoon, as Jennifer finished wiping down a table at Maple Diner, the owner, Mr. Hartman, called her into his office. "You've been here for over 10 years, Jennifer," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You've worked hard, never complained, and shown more resilience than anyone I've ever met." Jennifer blinked, unsure where he was going with this. "I want to promote you to deputy manager." Her heart nearly stopped. "Me?" Mr. Hartman chuckled. "Yes, you. It's about time." Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. She had spent so many years feeling invisible, struggling to prove her worth, and now someone finally saw her. "Thank you," she whispered. News of what had happened at the wedding, news spread quickly through the community. People who had once ignored Jennifer now saw her in a different light. Strangers came into the diner just to shake her hand. "You stood up for yourself," one woman told her. "And your boy, he's got more courage than most grown men." Jennifer would smile, feeling warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't about recognition. It was about the simple fact that for the first time in her life, she wasn't allowing anyone to belittle her. Meanwhile, Michael's life unraveled. His company, upon discovering the scandal, quietly let him go. His once pristine reputation was in shambles. The man who had once flaunted his success now found doors closing in his face. Caroline, unable to face the whispers and stares, packed up and moved to another city. She was now raising her child alone, experiencing the very life she had once mocked Jennifer for. As for Beverly, the once proud matriarch found herself abandoned. The same people who had once flocked to her social gatherings now avoided her, unwilling to associate with disgrace. One evening, Jennifer received a letter in the mail. She recognized Beverly's expensive stationery. "I was wrong about everything. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I am sorry." Jennifer stared at the words for a long time. Then she took a deep breath and wrote a short response. "I can let the past go, but that doesn't mean I will ever forget." She mailed it the next morning. Months later, Jennifer stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the new deputy manager badge on her uniform. Tyler came running in holding up a test paper. A+. He grinned. Jennifer beamed and pulled him into a hug. She had been humiliated. She had been broken, but she had risen stronger. For the first time in years, she was excited for the future. Jennifer sat on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her, watching as Tyler spread his books across the coffee table, his brows furrowed in concentration as he worked through a math problem, occasionally biting the tip of his pencil. Ever since that night at the wedding, something had changed in him. At school, he walked with more confidence. His teachers noticed his sharp mind. His classmates listened when he spoke. The boy who once hesitated to speak up now carried himself with quiet strength. One afternoon, he came home with a wide grin and a certificate in his hand. "Mom, I won the class debate." Jennifer beamed, pulling him into a hug. "That's amazing, sweetheart. What was the topic?" Standing up for what's right, he said, his eyes twinkling. Jennifer felt her heart swell with pride. Her son wasn't just brave. He was becoming a leader. Meanwhile, her own life had taken a new direction. 3 days a week, after her shifts at Maple Diner, she attended night classes at the local community college. Sitting in a classroom again after so many years felt strange at first, but she had never been more determined. She was finally pursuing what she had given up long ago. A degree in nutrition. One evening as she flipped through her textbook at the kitchen table, Tyler sat across from her, resting his chin on his hands. "Mom," he asked thoughtfully, "can you own a restaurant?" One day Jennifer looked up surprised. "Surprised, a restaurant? Yeah," Tyler said, his eyes bright. "You know so much about food now, and you're really good at your job, so why not?" Jennifer smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. "Yes," she said, reaching over to ruffle his hair, "I can. And I just took the first step." Tyler grinned. "Then one day when you own the best restaurant in town, I'll be your first customer." Jennifer laughed. Deal. Later that night they curled up on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between them. The TV played one of Tyler's favorite movies, and Jennifer found herself finally relaxing, letting go of the weight she had carried for so long. As Tyler leaned his head against her shoulder, she ran her fingers gently through his hair. For years it had felt like the world was against them, that they were always fighting to prove their worth, but not anymore. They had faced humiliation, betray, and heartbreak, but instead of letting it break them, they had risen stronger. Jennifer knew there would still be challenges ahead. Life was never easy, but now she wasn't afraid of the future. She glanced down at Tyler, who was already half asleep, his face peaceful. Their story wasn't one of loss, it was one of resilience, of courage, of love, and it was only just beginning.